Ready? Yeah!
Football is a sport I love, but the one you and I are thinking of is not the kind of football we're talking about in this video. It's this kind of football, most known in the United States as the National Football League, or NFL. I consider myself only as an intriguing passer to the sport and only ever watch the game when the Super Bowl comes on in February, which doesn't really make sense because the Super Bowl is the final game before the postseason begins. Or at least that's how I think it works. But why have I decided to talk about American football in the early remnants of my newest gaming review channel? Well, the reason being is because a certain topic regarding the sport has kind of got me interested, and since this channel is gaming related, it's probably something to do with video games. Just like they do with the FIFA games, EA Sports release a game every year based on the NFL known simply as Madden. It is so named because former Oakland Raiders coach John Madden has lended his voice, personality, and his name to EA's game since 1993. He has since continued to do this even before he retired as a broadcaster of the sport in 2009. That being said, John Madden between the years of 1993 and 1998 appeared solely on front covers for each game sold yearly for the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Mega Drive, and other platforms. 1999, however, EA Sports took a different approach in showing off the games. Rather than having John Madden himself on the cover to every game, EA Sports would instead showcase a specific player, preferably someone who has done well for their team, to be on the cover each year. This is where our delve into this topic turns into somewhat of a conspiracy, and whether or not some people or fans of NFL believe it to be true or just a coincidence. This begins what people like to call the Madden Curse. This infamous video gaming conspiracy has been going on for 20 years, and it has been since dubbed as EA Sports' own personal Grim Reaper for NFL football players. It was started up by NFL fans, global media, and countless internet blogs, stating that whoever is chosen to be placed on the front cover of the upcoming Madden game for the season would end up encountering a terribly bad string of luck, whether it be an injury, a statistically poor season, or any outside event that would severely damage that individual's reputation. In more recent years, the curse has been known to have been lost in action, but as EA have been adding players to their covers of the game since 1999, players have been shown, and ever since then, as far as their professional careers are concerned, they would only be seen as a shadow of their former selves. In this video, we name these players, the games they were shown on, and what happened to these players during their time of the cover of the last Madden at their respective periods. Garrison Hearst, San Francisco 49ers, Madden 1999. After joining the 49ers in 1997, running back Garrison Hearst set franchise records in 1998 for yards in a season and combined rushing receiving yards. He also famously achieved one of the longest runs in NFL history when he ran 96 yards for a game-winning touchdown in overtime on opening day of the 1998 season against the New York Jets. The following year, he was rewarded as being the face for the upcoming Madden 1999 game for PS1 and the Nintendo 64 as a result. In that season, he successfully led the 49ers to the playoffs, only to suffer a terrifying broken ankle in the team's second round game against the Atlanta Falcons. Hearst, as a result of this, would end up missing 2 entire seasons. He returned as a player to the Denver Broncos roster in 2004, but he would never replicate the player he once was. Barry Sanders, Detroit Lions, and Dorsey Levens, Green Bay Packers, Madden 2000. Hugely regarded by many as one of the greatest running backs of all time, Barry Sanders had been consistently voted to the Pro Bowl and in 1997 became only the 3rd player in NFL history behind O.J. Simpson and Eric Dickerson to rush for over 2,000 yards in a single season. He also became the first player to rush for over 1,500 yards in 4 consecutive seasons, and he finished the 1998 season with the 3rd highest career rushing yards in NFL history. A few months after he had been named as the player on the cover for Madden NFL 2000, Sanders, to the shock of so many fans, announced that he would retire from the game. This unexpected proposal left a huge void in the Detroit roster, and there still remains quite a bit of controversy and mystery surrounding the scenario that ended the career of one of the NFL's finest players. In contrast, Dorsey Levens of the Green Bay Packers was pinpointed as EA's plan B for the cover of the game. Levens had led the Packers to several playoff runs in recent seasons, but after being officially named as the player on the cover for Madden 2000, he developed a nagging injury that would cost not only himself, but for the Packers as well, as they posted an 8-8 record, their worst since Brett Favre was their quarterback in 1992. Eddie George, Tennessee Titans, Madden 2001. A winner of the Heisman Trophy from Ohio State University, Eddie George earned his rise to fame as one of the most reliable workhorses in the NFL during his 9-season career, and entered the 2000 season saddled with very high expectations. This despite his Tennessee Titans losing only marginally against the St. Louis Rams at Super Bowl 34. George had rushed over 1,200 yards in each of his 4 seasons prior and had averaged over 3.7 yards per carry. Unlike the previous players mentioned thus far, George didn't suffer an injury in the season after being chosen for the Madden 2001 cover. In fact, he was doing even better than he had done before, taking the Titans to another playoff season, whilst breaking more records in the process. The problem for George, however, was rather a pass that he had completely fumbled, something that was a rarity by his standards, and it would prove costly as it would result in an interception and touchdown that would see the Titans lose out to the Baltimore Ravens. George, whilst he remained in the NFL for a further 4 seasons, would never run for more than 1,200 yards in a season again. Daunte Culpepper, Minnesota Vikings, Madden 2002. Madden 2002 was actually one of a few NFL games that I owned, but it was on the PC, and I would only simulate the games because I never knew how to play it myself. As for Daunte Culpepper, he was named as a starting quarterback for the Vikings ahead of the 2000 season, and led them to an impressive 11-5 record, as well as the conference championship game, showing off almost 4,000 yards passing and rushing for nearly 500 yards. The Pro Bowl followed, along with the trait of being the most celebrated young quarterbacks in the NFL. A few months after he'd been selected for the Madden 2002 cover, he suffered a knee injury during a game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, which would force him out for the rest of the 2001 season. The following season saw him throw 23 interceptions to only 18 touchdowns. Marshall Faulk, St. Louis Rams, Madden 2003. Faulk was already a Super Bowl champion following the St. Louis Rams' recent success at Super Bowl 34. He was a rushing, receiving and yard record breaker and a member of the franchise's record-breaking offense known simply as the greatest show on turf. All this immediately gave him a chance to be named the cover athlete for Madden 2003. The season that unfolded as a result of this decision by EA began the beginning of the decline for Faulk. The 2002 season, for example, saw him fail to rush more than 1,000 yards for the first time in his career, and his yardage totals continued to decline in subsequent seasons. A crushing knee injury resulted in his absence for the entire 2006 season, and he never returned to the NFL. Michael Vick, Atlanta Falcons, Madden 2004. An incredibly electric player for the NFL, Michael Vick redefined the quarterback position during his early seasons for the Atlanta Falcons, setting records for rushing yards by quarterback whilst also setting a high standard for completion percentage and passing yards. Vick raised the bar for mobile quarterbacks with almost 3,000 yards passing and 777 yards rushing during the 2002 season. He also led the Falcons to an unexpected playoff victory that same year. However, it wasn't long until being announced as the face of the Madden 2004 cover that he would severely fracture his right fibula during a pre-season game. It would force him to miss the first 11 games of the season. It would be apparent later on in his career that Vick would plead guilty to federal charges regarding the Bad News Kennels dogfighting investigation in 2007. Ray Lewis, Baltimore Ravens, Madden 2005. Widely known to NFL history as one of the most terrifying linebackers in the league, Ray Lewis was the centerpiece to a Baltimore Ravens side that repeatedly won with its defense. It had already won a Super Bowl in 2000, and Lewis was one of the sole reasons for this success, with 7 seasons of more than 100 solo tackles to go alongside a flurry of sacks, interceptions, and record-breaking defensive displays. The curse of the Madden 2005 cover was not to miss out this brew, however, as although it wasn't exactly a bad season for Lewis, it proved to be the first of only 3 seasons throughout his 17-year career in which he didn't record a single interception. He was also on the receiving end of a torn right hamstring 6 weeks in, forcing him out entirely. The Ravens that same season failed to make the playoffs for the first time in several years. Donovan McNabb, Philadelphia Eagles, Madden 2006. McNabb as a quarterback led the Eagles to a series of conference championships during his first 5 years in the NFL and found success despite a less than stellar supporting cast of wide receivers for several of those seasons. A dual threat running and passing, McNabb had led the Philadelphia Eagles to the team's second Super Bowl in franchise history in 2004. This earned him the chance to be on the front cover for the new Madden game. The curse? Well, this guy, Terrell Owens. Donovan's best friend, right Philly fans? Well, to set the record, constant turmoil on and off the pitch would culminate the end of his career in 2011. As for his front cover season, he was on track for a huge one when he suddenly developed a groin injury that would send him straight to the injured reserve list for the remainder of the season. He would never quite recover the season after, and in week 11, he would go on to tear his anterior cruciate ligament and meniscus, I hope I said that right, in his right knee. That's 2 career-ending injuries at once. Shaun Alexander, Seattle Seahawks, Madden 2007. A workhorse and a linchpin in the Seattle Hawks offense in 2005, Shaun Alexander became the first running back in NFL history to record 15 touchdowns in 5 consecutive seasons, and he would also go on to break the franchise record for rushing. He also scored 19 touchdowns, rushing or receiving in only 10 games, the first time anyone had ever done so in the league's history. This led to him being named MVP that same season, and would lead the Seahawks to make an appearance at the Super Bowl, where they would eventually lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers. After being announced as the player of the Madden 2007 cover, however, he suffered a broken foot in only week 3 of the season, and it would be the first time he would fail to reach 1,000 yards rushing since he had become a starter for the Seahawks. The season that followed saw him fracture a wrist and then sprain both his knee and ankle. Alexander was then cut from the roster in 2008. Vince Young, Tennessee Titans, Madden 2008. Following Vince Young's addition to the Madden cover for 2008, the Tennessee Titans became the first NFL team to have 2 players represent the franchise on a Madden cover, following Eddie George's inclusion in 2001. Young was an upcoming quarterback who had just completed a fantastic rookie season, breaking every single record in the book. The fleet-footed single caller led the Titans to multiple comeback wins, leading him to be named Offensive Rookie of the Year, as well as a Pro Bowl selection. After being slapped on the front cover for Madden 2008, Young started the season slowly, and he followed it up with an injury to his quadricep in week 6. The first known injury he would ever suffer in his career, including college football. Later in the season he would return, but then get injured again in the final game of the season. Second choice at the time, Kerry Collins, would take over as main quarterback, and Young would never be seen as first choice. Brett Favre, Green Bay Packers / New York Jets, Madden 09. After seeing countless football players come and go, falling victim to what fans were now labeling the Madden Curse at this point, EA Sports decided, rather than appoint a promising upcoming great from the last NFL season, they would instead honour the career of one of the league's greatest ever quarterbacks to play the game. Enter former Green Bay Packers legend Brett Favre. He had only just recently announced his retirement from the game, having taken the Packers to 2 Super Bowl appearances and winning one of them over an illustrious 16-year career with them. Just soon after he'd been announced as the player on the cover for Madden 09, however, Favre suddenly made a U-turn and decided that he hadn't given up on the game after all. Following this decision, he signed up with the New York Jets and had a relatively decent season to sustain an injury to his right shoulder later on that would plague him for the remaining 3 seasons leading up to his retirement again in 2011. Larry Fitzgerald, Arizona Cardinals, and Troy Polamalu, Pittsburgh Steelers, Madden 10. For the first time in the yearly game's history, Madden would decide to add not one, but two NFL players on the front cover for Madden 10. The players in question were Troy Polamalu of the Pittsburgh Steelers and Larry Fitzgerald of the Arizona Cardinals. Fitzgerald had earned praise as one of the best catchers in the NFL well ahead of his Madden cover debut, with a Super Bowl appearance and multiple single seasons and franchise records already in hand by the time he was approached by EA Sports. On the other hand, Troy Polamalu was already a multiple Pro Bowl selection as a safety for the Steelers before his debut on the Madden cover, and had helped the Steelers win several Super Bowls, including the most recent one against Fitzgerald and the Cardinals the previous year. Adding two players on the cover of Madden 10 would have possibly been in hopes that at least one of them could come out unscathed throughout the upcoming season, and if Fitzgerald's inability to play in the Pro Bowl 2010 due to a rib injury was anything to go by, EA Sports would have gotten half that right. Fitzgerald prior to this set several personal records over the 2009 season. However, Troy Polamalu fell victim to the curse majorly. He sprained his medial collateral ligament, MCL, in the first half of the Week 1 of the 2009 season and was forced to miss out the next 4 games. He then played in 3 more games later that season, only to injure his posterior cruciate ligament in November. The Steelers would miss the playoffs that year and finish an unusual 9-7. Drew Brees, New Orleans Saints, Madden 11. Pass-happy New Orleans quarterback Drew Brees was named the Madden NFL cover athlete following his impressive record-breaking 2009 season that led his Saints team to a Super Bowl and defeating the Indianapolis Colts in a wild shootout. Brees had set a new NFL record for completion percentage during this season, and he helped the Saints win their first championship in the franchise's history. This was followed up by a Super Bowl MVP award and numerous other accolades during the season, including the honor of being the name's Sports Illustrated Sportsman of the Year. The following season, however, after being announced as the player of the Madden 11 cover, Brees encountered one of his worst seasons to date, despite it not being an overly terrible one, and injury-free. Brees threw twice as many interceptions as he had in earlier years, and the team's generally lackluster performances led to an embarrassing playoff defeat in the first week of the postseason. The Saints lost to the Seattle Seahawks, which wouldn't be so bad if it had not been for the fact that the Seahawks in this season became the first team in NFL history to have made it to the playoffs with a losing record, 7-9. Peyton Hillis, Cleveland Browns, Madden 12. It is said that the Cleveland Browns are the laughing stock of the NFL due to their recent horrific seasons, but they have had a player represent them on a Madden cover. Enter Peyton Hillis, a fullback turned into a running back, coming off the bench for the Browns in 2010 to smash his way to 1,777 yards rushing and 477 yards receiving in a surprising season that put all eyes on the otherwise unheralded bruiser. Hillis beat the likes of Matt Ryan, Michael Vick and Ray Rice to the cover for Madden 12. Prior to this, however, Hillis' troubles began way before this, heating contract disputes which was followed by a stripped throat and a pulled hamstring led him to miss a series of games and hugely failing to keep in sync with the team. He only played 10 games, accumulating just 587 yards rushing and an increasingly poor set of displays, compared to his earlier 2010 performances. The Browns decided against resigning Hillis and left the franchise as a free agent. Calvin Johnson, Detroit Lions, Madden 13. Detroit's wide receiver Calvin Megatron Johnson broke numerous records before being named the cover athlete for Madden 13, with the former Georgia Institute of Technology standout living up to every bit of the hype surrounding his first-round selection in the 2007 NFL Draft. Johnson is considered by many as one of the best wide receivers in NFL history, and although Detroit had an extremely disappointing 0-16 season in 2008, Johnson's numbers even flourished here, during which he led the league in receiving touchdowns and finished among the top 5 in receiving yards. It's apparent to some that this is the first time the Madden Curse does not take a victim here, as Johnson's 2012 season was his best overall. He featured countless records falling by the wayside as he went on to record 1964 yards receiving over the course of the season. a few NFL records that beat the original record set by Jerry Rice. If any kind of remnant of the curse was to exist here, it would be that it became apparent through his own words that he had played a majority of the season with broken fingers. Adrian Peterson, Minnesota Vikings, Madden NFL 25. One of a few other NFL games that I happen to own because at the time of its release I happened to be strongly curious of the sport, and on the cover it included Minnesota Vikings running back Adrian Peterson. He earned the rights to the cover when he returned to football after 8 months of rehabilitation for an ACL and MCL tear during the 2011 season. Not exactly a good sign already. In 2012 he proved a lot of critics wrong by boasting an impressive season, rushing for 2,097 yards, this being the second highest tally for any running back in history of the NFL. His impressive displays helped the Vikings improve from a 3-13 season to a 10-6 finish, earning him the NFL's MVP award. Following his inclusion on the Madden NFL 25, however, Peterson struggled for the first half of the season because of a nagging foot injury, thus only being able to start 14 games. The Vikings dropped back down to a 5-10-1 record after he was declared done for the season in December due to the same aggravated foot injury. Richard Sherman, Seattle Seahawks, Madden NFL 15. An incredibly stern athlete and one of the NFL's most dominant defensive backs, Richard Sherman was one of a few members of the Seahawks' famous Legion of Boom defense, consisting of himself and fellow players Byron Maxwell, Jeremy Lane, Deshaun Shade, Brandon Browner, Cam Chancellor, and Earl Thomas. Sherman's knack for shutting down even the fiercest of offenses and putting on a show after doing so made him a popular pick for the front cover of Madden NFL 15. Sherman was able to put the sword to some of the finest wide receivers in the league. Sherman put his season on the line against the Madden Curse, going so far as to tell ESPN, "I don't believe in curses, I believe in God." In this instance, this was an example of the curse hardly even showing up. Sherman during the 2014-15 season successfully led Seattle to another Super Bowl against the New England Patriots. Although the team ended up losing, it wasn't due to any lack of effort or performance by Sherman, who recorded 3 tackles for the league-leading Seattle defense. If the curse was to show up anywhere at all, it would be the end of the season, where Seattle had announced Sherman would need surgery to repair a torn ligament in his left elbow, which had healed up quickly in order for him to be fit for the start of the following season. Odell Beckham Jr., New York Giants, Madden NFL 16. No relation to this England legend. Odell Beckham Jr. was the 12th overall pick in the 2014 NFL Draft, picked out by the New York Giants. He made his presence well known as well, with one of the greatest catches ever seen in NFL history when he received a one-handed pass for a touchdown against the Dallas Cowboys. Beckham then went on to become one of the most all-rounded and accomplished rookie receivers in the league's history, setting numerous records for both first-year players and veterans, with a season that included 91 interceptions for 1,305 yards and 12 touchdowns, all in just 12 games for the Giants. After beating out Rob Gronkowski of the Patriots to the Madden cover, Beckham became the youngest player in the series' history to be featured. With the exception of the fact that he had some on-field anger issues resulting in a 1-game suspension, Beckham's season wasn't really affected by the curse at all. He finished the season with 1,450 receiving yards and 13 touchdowns. With these numbers, Beckham actually recorded higher numbers than the previous year, and he was named to his second consecutive Pro Bowl. Rob Gronkowski, New England Patriots, Madden NFL 17. One of the finest tight ends in NFL history, Rob Gronkowski was known to be hugely injury prone even before he had graced the cover of Madden 2017. Despite this, Gronk still managed to become one of the league's most productive and dominant players at that position for several years with New England, leading up to the 2016-17 season. Only edged by Odell Beckham Jr. for the cover in the last game, Gronk finished the 2015-16 season with 10 touchdowns and 1,018 yards on the season, and helped lead the Patriots to the playoffs for yet another year. He capped off another excellent season by earning a selection to the Pro Bowl and the AP All-Pro team for the 4th time in his career. As injuries were apparent with Gronk, it would be fitting that the curse would again surface. He missed the opening game against the Houston Texans with a hamstring problem, but after recovering, he bounced back to amass 540 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns through 6 games. All seemed well until Game 7 into the season, where he sustained a herniated disc in his back against Seattle, resulting in his permanent absence for the rest of the season. Well, that's pretty much the Madden Curse in a nutshell. Who is going to be the main man on Madden 18? Let me know in the comments below, since I'm not exactly familiar with the NFL myself, but I wanted to do this video anyway because the Madden Curse is one of the more interesting things about gaming today. Is the Madden Curse a myth? Or is it just a coincidence? Whatever your thoughts, I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned a thing or two. So yes, if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at ChrisMonner9. Check me out my other gaming channel, Chris Monner Games. Check me out my Google, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitch, and of course, my eBay store. Thank you very much for watching. Please have a great day, have a great life, be nice to your fellow gamers, because we're all human beings. Thank you for watching. Until the next video, I shall see you later. Hey door, and peace.